We think you should know that Imperfect Heroes podcast is a production of Little Hearts Academy USA.
Welcome, heroes and heroines, to episode 116 of Imperfect Heroes, Insights into Parenting, the perfect podcast for imperfect parents looking to find joy in their experience of raising children in an imperfect world. And I'm your host, DJ Stutz. And before we get started, I'd like to tell you about a great opportunity. Are you ready to become the ultimate guide in your child's development journey? Little Hearts Academy USA has a new self-paced Cicerone Master's class. This is a transformative course designed to empower parents with the knowledge and tools that they need to foster their children's social, emotional, and academic readiness for school. There are 4 comprehensive modules to help you dive deep into understanding your parenting style and how it impacts your child's growth. Learn to navigate the critical stages of your child's development with confidence and ease, and understand how to best support your child as they get ready for school and throughout their early grades. Register for the masterclass by visiting the website www.littleheartsacademyusa.com or by simply clicking on the link in the show notes. And today we have a fantastic treat for you. We are joined by none other than the brilliant Dr. Elizabeth Arleo, and the author of the must-read book, First Eat Your Frog, and Other Pearls for Professional Working Mothers. Now, I know as parents, we often feel like we're trying to juggle a circus act while riding a unicycle, and Dr. Arleo is here to help us find the perfect balance. In this episode, we're delving into the art of setting priorities and learning to give ourselves that much-needed dose of grace. And after all, none of us can do it all, but together, we can certainly do the important things. Dr. Arleo brings not only her expertise, but also a dash of lighthearted humor to the table. She knows what she's talking about. Get this. She is a board-certified radiologist specializing in breast and body imaging and a fellow of the American College of Radiology, the Society of Breast Imaging. She is a professor of radiology at the Weill Cornell Medical College and an attending radiologist at the New York Presbyterian Hospital. Oh, I'm not even done yet. Dr. Arleo is also the editor-in-chief of the radiology journal Clinical Imaging, and that isn't even all she does, but it's all I have time to mention. She reminds us that it is perfectly okay to let a few balls drop in the air as long as we're holding on to the ones that truly matter. And we'll explore the secrets to reclaiming your time, finding joy in parenting, and achieving that elusive work-life harmony. So whether you're a working parent, a stay-at-home parent, or just somewhere in between, get ready for an episode packed with wisdom, laughter, and a renewed sense of purpose. Without further ado, let's welcome Dr. Elizabeth Arleo to this show. There's so much to learn, so let's get started. Welcome, everyone. I'm so excited to have you back at Imperfect Heroes podcast. And I just want to make sure that you guys know that we are showing our video on YouTube and Rumble now. And so if you have comments, if you like what you hear, give us a thumbs up, make a comment. We'd love to hear what you are interested in. And be sure to like and follow, and that's going to help us along as well. You know, I don't know how I got so blessed. I am just blessed with so many amazing people that I've been able to connect with to have as guests on the program. And Elizabeth Arleo is no exception. And so she's written a book, First Eat Your Frog. Yep. Oh, there it is. Yeah. And so Elizabeth, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, first of all, thank you so much for the opportunity to be on your show today. I really appreciate it. I am a mother of 3. I have 3 girls, ages 6, 11, and 14, and I'm a practicing physician. I specialize in radiology, and I just got back from the office. So here I am in my scrubs. And I'm also an editor and writer on the side. So this is my first book, First Eat Your Frog. And I'm thrilled that it came out on International Women's Day. You can find it on Amazon And in it, I talk about 8 lessons or pearls of wisdom that am learning in the almost 15 years since I first became a professional working mother.
Wow, that is just so much when you think about 3 girls and they're at such an active, exciting age, where you're able to really make some amazing connections and engage. But that takes a lot of time and a lot of effort. And then you're a doctor and you're doing your radiology and saving lives and making a difference. And then I don't know where you find the time to write and edit. You're just a Wonder Woman, I guess.
I'm an imperfect hero. I love the hopefully hero, definitely imperfect. I feel most hero-like when I really, help a patient or a child in need. But yeah, I think it's part of one of my number one pearls is, and I have a whole chapter on this, is don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. So I could start, given the topic of the title of your show, maybe that's the first pearl I'll talk a little bit about.
Yeah, for sure. Because that is such an important one, And the reason we titled the show the way we did is because, parents who are trying, they're sticking around, they're doing their best, and some have different levels of success than others. Some define success differently than others, and all of that is okay. But I don't know, if you're a believer, I'm a believer, but even Christ had Joseph and Mary who were mortal, and I am sure they had their days, right? And so there's never been a perfect parent, ever. And we all get tired and hungry and stressed out and overwhelmed, and I'm sick and tired of your fighting. We have those days, and that's okay. So talk to us a little bit about how you expand on not letting perfect get in the way.
Yes, absolutely. So don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good is a quotation attributed to Voltaire, who was a French philosopher in the 1700s, whose words of wisdom are true today because they've just really endured across the ages. And what it means to me is, aside from, I do not have this quotation in my office because with patient care, that's the one area that I still try for as close to humanly perfection as possible. But outside of patient care, what don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good means to me is that, if there's a task at hand at the office or at home, I try as a recovering perfectionist to be a satisficer, meaning if there's a task, I try to set criteria for it. And once those criteria are met, then I'm done and satisfied. Like if I'm looking for a restaurant to go, special treat out to dinner with the family, I'm looking for family-friendly restaurant with pizza or french fries for my little one and a good happy hour for me and my husband. And once those criteria are met, I'm done. I'm satisfied. I'm going to remind myself not to keep scrolling through, the internet for the perfect restaurant because that perfect restaurant doesn't exist. And reminding ourselves not to strive, perfection is not humanly attainable. So reminding ourselves not to strive for it is helpful because if you strive for the unattainable, then this can lead to things of anxiety and depression.
Right. Yeah. Remember to give yourself that little bit of grace. Okay, things didn't go perfectly, but they're all in bed. I know where they all are. You can give yourselves those kinds of pats on the back. I don't care if they're sleeping in their clothes. In fact, I know some parents who they struggle with the whole clothing thing, getting dressed in the morning. They just get them dressed at night, sleep in your clothes, we're ready to go in the morning.
Yes, I read about that years ago, and I thought it was genius. And I never tried it with my older two, and all of a sudden my little one came up with the idea herself, and I'm like, I am totally for it. Absolutely. I love it. So she's already thinking efficiently, and she's 6. In another 5 minutes of sleep, and I am all for that for everybody. So
yeah. And what a great thing. She's already a problem solver.
Yep. Love it.
Yeah. And that's what we're trying to encourage and develop in our kids while they're in those fun foundational years. From birth to 8 is when they're really starting to look at how they look at themselves and how they look at the world. And am I a victim or am I a victor? And all of those things that are happening. And I think, too, that just having a sense of humor about it. And there's so many things. My kids are all grown. I've got 12 grandkids now.
Okay.
We have 5 kids. And It's just hysterical that some of the things that were just like, bah, at the time, and now we get together and we all look back and they are sources of great entertainment, generally at my expense, but that's okay. If we're laughing, I don't care. And so sometimes I was out with a friend of mine when the kids were younger, and she was, we used to have those old video cameras rather than our phones, but we were at the park and the kids are having fun, and her son, who was probably 6 or 7 around there, just had a total meltdown. And so I was actually working with him when she's realized it. She grabbed her camera and comes up. She catches me with it, talking to her son. And she said, yeah, that's for the wedding reel. And I thought, what a great sense of humor. Like, instead of being embarrassed or, devastated that her son did whatever, but she just saw the humor in it already. What a great head start, I guess.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And so what are some of the ways then that we talk about getting away from that need for perfection?
I think one of the other things that's helped me very much, and I talk about in this book, is the importance of, it can be very helpful to think about time in 168 instead of 24-hour chunks. And with this, it can help get away from perfection. So what I mean by this is, the equation is we all have 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, equaling 168 hours. So the fact of the math is that even if you work 50 hours a week, which is more than most people, and sleep 50 hours a week, which would be 8 hours a night, which sounds perfectly delicious to most professional working mothers. And the math is you still have over 60 hours after work and sleep for your priorities, whatever they may be, for your family and friends, or your community. So how does this help us as professional working mothers? Well, and getting away from perfection, I think it does in both, because it lessens the pressure. In other words, whereas you can't do it all or have it all or do it perfectly within 24 hours, you think about time in 168 hours. The fact of the math is we do have 60 hours to do the things that are most important for us. So it's about taking the time not to do everything or anything perfectly, but figuring out what our priorities are and knowing there's time for that.
For sure. And I think that there's a syndrome that happens. And I know that once, my kids were basically growing up. They were past the 8-year-old stage when I went back to work and actually back to school and finished my degree. But there is a thing of maybe a guilt. Oh, my kids are missing out on this. Oh, we really don't have time for them to be in X, Y, or Z. And they start putting that guilt on them, and it makes things worse for them. It makes things worse for their kids too, because now they're feeling that guilt that mom's feeling, and mom's feeling more and more stressed about it. That stress will pass on into the family because that's just how it works. And so how do we help parents, moms and dads, honestly, because dads go through it too, but how do we help them get over that? Oh, we can't do 3 sports. You're going to have to pick one, which I think is better for them anyway, whether you're at home or working somewhere else. And so how do we help get them past that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a challenge for both parents of all genders and children. And I think it's an opportunity because there's not endless time, there's not endless money, and there's not endless people to do everything. So I think it's an opportunity for both parent and child to sit down and just say, like, frankly, transparently, put the issue on the table and think about what priorities are. It's the beginning of prioritizing. Everything is an opportunity cost. You do one thing, you can't do the other. And just working with your child to find what his or her priority is. And if you can try to make it happen, if go ahead and try it. And you can always, nothing is written in stone. You can always reassess in a week or 2 or a month or a quarter or semester.
Yeah.
Sit down and see how's it going for both of us. Or if you can't achieve priority 1, like, I hear you that's your priority. Like, maybe we can save up to do that for the future. Let's plan B. I definitely use the verbiage plan A, B, C. Sometimes we're getting into plan D and E with my kids, and they understand that's life.
Right. And I know that money you brought that up, and I thought that's such an important thing because a lot of times when we have working parents, money really is an issue, especially if you're a single parent trying to manage everything on your own. That's a whole nother big thing that we need to give some grace for. But I remember, so when I was teaching, I was a parenting facilitator in Las Vegas for the Division of Family and Youth Services. And I had a class that I was doing, and on day one, I asked, what is your biggest concern today? And this one dad said, my son wants to play baseball and I don't have the money for him to join a team. And so we spent a little bit of time brainstorming with the class and whatever. So he was writing down some ideas. Some of them he'd already tried and they didn't work. But so he wrote down some ideas. Well, the class was a 6-week long thing. So on the last week, we spent a little time at the end with sharing. And he said that he wanted to share. What happened was he decided that he did have some time after work in the evenings, right? And so instead of sitting down and watching Sports Center or whatever, that he picked up the baseball and the mitts and they went out, and he said, we're going to do our own baseball practice. And so every weeknight after he got home and cleaned up or whatever, he went outside and was throwing the ball and teaching him some batting stances and going through some of those fundamental skills. Well, after just a few days of doing that, a neighbor kid came by. He said, are you doing baseball? No, it's hockey. We're just using a baseball bat. No, he wasn't that. But he said, yeah. He goes, can I play? Yeah, come on in. He said, by the time we were done, they had something like 10, 11 kids that were coming out to practice baseball with this dad and his son. A couple of dads started coming out even. And they wound up with this fabulous group. And he said yesterday, so it was the day before our last class, they'd actually gone down to the park that was a few blocks away, split the kids up, and just played baseball. And some of the moms made some food and brought it, and they had just this fun outing. And they were going to keep it going through the summer. And I thought, wow. I mean, now that's problem solving when instead of just saying, no, we can't, we don't have money, or even worse, well, we could if your dad would pay his child support, or, that's a terrible thing to say. But he figured out a way to solve it and move forward with that. And I think that thinking out of the box sometimes, it makes you feel better, right? As a parent. Look what this huge problem I solved. Makes the kids feel better. And I thought, what about the relationship with this kid and his dad?
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. Was it better because they did the little one, or would it have been better if he joined a team?
Absolutely. So many lessons there.
Yeah, so many. So I just want to make sure that parents are following your advice and really looking at that and giving themselves some grace. I love that. Do you have another pearl you'd like to share?
Sure. I guess my third favorite of the book is the title, First Eat Your Frog. What is eating your frog? I don't mean
want to know about it.
Unless I guess you're in parts of you're in France or parts of Louisiana. Actually, frog's legs are a thing, but I don't literally mean eat your frog. What I mean by it, this is a quotation that comes from Mark Twain, who said, if it's your job to eat a frog, it's best to eat it first thing in the morning. And if it's your job to eat 2 frogs, it's best to start with the larger one. Meaning, best to take care of the most important thing as early as possible in the day or week or whatever time period you're dealing with. And, I've had this on my wall in my office, this quotation posted for years. And how does this help us as professional working mothers? I think it does, and fathers, as parents, in 2 ways. I would say one, it sets yourself up for success because come what may, the most important thing has been taken care of. And 2, it also lessens the mental load, where the mental load is all the things you have going on in your head, the lists you have, the organizing, taking care of, all the people who are dependent on you.
Yeah.
So, for example, I'll say, and as a public service announcement, in radiology, I focused in women's imaging. So the recommendation by the American College of Radiology and Society of Breast Imaging is for annual screening mammography, starting at age 40 and continuing for as long as a woman is in good health. And yet screening can be anxiety provoking for many women, myself including, even a breast cancer. So what I like to do is schedule my annual screening mammogram as early as possible in the month or week or day that I'm having it done, so that I set myself up for success, taking care of myself physically and lessen my mental load, because I don't have to worry all week about, getting it done.
Right, right. What a great idea. And I think that that's really good. So when we're talking about prioritizing, right? And here's another way that we can bring our kids in on it too. We can talk to them about what's the most important thing that we have to do this week or tomorrow, right? And then make sure that the kids are in on it as well, and how to accomplish all of that, right? I love that. And prioritizing is, like I said, and like you said, just so important. And now we can talk about, one of the things that I work on with my families is understanding how we sabotage ourselves and then becoming strategic. And this is one of the processes of becoming strategic, is really looking at, okay, what are the big things? What are my frogs that I have to do this week, this month, tomorrow, today, and then go from there. And yeah, that is a key development. And when you include your kids in it, even from the time that they're little, because they may say, the most important thing you have to do tomorrow is take me to the park. Right? And they're probably not really too wrong. if you can figure it out and make it work,
Absolutely. And the priorities change over time. And so going to the park will be the most important thing for, that age group, whatever the range may be. And, now for example, my daughter is 11. She's in 6th grade. The homework is ramping up.
Yeah.
So much homework. So I'll say, which subject is your frog? And she'll be like, math. I'm like, then she'll be like, I'm gonna eat my frog. And then she goes and takes care of her math. So, I mean, yeah, there's a lot of, we use it now, given the book in my family. And everybody knows what it means. It's very quick. It's very efficient. Everybody knows what it means to eat your frog.
I love that you've given that to your family. What a gift that's been. And what a fun thing to say. Yeah, I'm going to eat my frog, And it's just such a great way to engage your kids in just something that sounds a little silly or a little goofy, but they know what it means, right? And they have that. And the chances are so much better that they're going to follow through, because something as I'm going to eat that frog is so silly that it makes it engaging, right?
Yeah, a little fun. Adds a little fun and whimsy as well to our lives.
Absolutely. I'm big on whimsy. Big on whimsy. You should see my office here. But anyway, and I think too that when you're doing these kinds of things, when we're as adults are doing these kinds of things, right? And our children are understanding it. But I think that as we talk about it out loud, so we may not even be talking directly to the kid, but the kid's in the vicinity, and you're verbalizing yourself, all right, what's my frog? Or what's the first thing I need to do? And, oh, I'm sure everyone's hungry. First thing I need to do. And I'm prioritizing. I've got 3 things I need to do. And you may not think they're listening. They're listening.
Oh, yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. In fact, it was funny. We were in church just this last week. And there was, she's like 19, 20 years old. And she was doing a little presentation. And we were laughing. My husband and I were laughing because she must have said it like 50 times in her little presentation. I'm not going to lie. Right. And so we were joking around about just my husband and I quietly, just about how I'm not going to lie, and what is that? Like, why? And then her dad got up to do another part. It was a family thing. And so her dad got up, and guess what he said? I'm not going to lie. I'm like, oh, that's where she gets it. And so it's just fun that I'm sure he did not sit down with her and explain to her that using I'm not going to lie, every third sentence, is a wonderful thing to do. And yet it was that trait, and she picked up on it without even being told. That can expand into all kinds of behaviors and sayings and attitudes when they see that when you and your spouse are, struggling with an issue, and they see it's okay for them to see you. I mean, talking things out, and they'll be like, oh, They're not, they're having a disagreement, but then let them see you work it out too. And let them see that there's compromise and there's give and take. And even though I may be upset, I'm going to speak respectfully or whatever. They're going to learn those things and do so much better as they move along in their lives by the example you set.
Absolutely. My husband and I have very different styles. He's a lawyer, and so what he does during the day and what I do the day,
Yeah.
successful in our respective fields takes different skills. And then it's hard to like turn it off, where that's just a natural part of who you are. And so we definitely have different styles. And I think though it can be challenging, at times it's good for our kids to see different styles of communication, and that you strive to be respectful, and you can arrive at a compromise or problem solve together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think when you talk about the eating your frog, so for me, I talk about the first 5 minutes. So if you're a working parent, and that's kind of what we're talking about today. If you're a working parent, and whether you're picking your kids up at school or at childcare, or you come home and the other parents already brought the kids home, there's all kinds of scenarios that can be going on. The first thing that those kids for 5 minutes, they need to hear, where are my kiddos? Where are my babies? And, I've missed you all day, or I had a really rough day at work, and I was just thinking about how nice it was going to be to come home to you guys. And you fill that bucket, and you give your spouse a peck on the cheek or whatever, and they see that there's that relationship that they're safe in as well. And then you can excuse yourself and say, I need to go up and change or whatever. I'll be gone for 10 minutes. If it's been a really bad day, you may need 20 minutes. But then you can go up and do your calming down, or do it before you come in. And I think that is, I would say, a frog when you first come in. Is if you want your kids to be excited to see you when you come home, Mommy, Daddy, right? What a good feeling that is. But if you want that, you have to earn it. And that's how you earn it.
Absolutely. So fun. It's a good reminder for all of us.
Yeah. So I think we've got time. Do you have, can we hit one more?
Yeah. One of my next ones, I would say would be stop over apologizing. I would say this would be particularly for professional working mothers, although I think many of the pearls in my book are applicable to all genders. The stop over apologizing, I would say, particularly for women. And I would define over apologizing. And again, this all relates to trying to be okay with not being perfect. But I would define over apologizing as apologizing too frequently or when it's not indicated. And obviously, saying I'm sorry when you've done something wrong is very important for successful interpersonal relationships. And yet, apologizing when it's not indicated can be a real weakness personally, as well as focus on the professionally. So I would say how it can really harm us as professional working women in the workplace if we, go to ask for something, a raise, more flexibility, office space, and you just are unconscious of saying like, I'm sorry to interrupt you. I'm sorry to before schedule. But like if you start by apologizing, you're putting the person you're asking in a position to be more likely to say no. And so it can really be a problem in the professional setting. So I learned this from a chair of radiology who came in, spoke a number of years ago, and she said that over the years she's had men and women come into her office and ask for things, as I said, and she just noticed that women often start with, I'm sorry, when there's absolutely no reason. And when she said that, I started listening to myself. And if you listen to yourself and those around you, you hear how often the word perfect also, and I'm sorry, both of them, it's actually shocking if you listen for both. And so I think that's the first start. Self-awareness, listening to yourself and those around you. And I've asked my girls to call me on it. Like, if you hear me over apologizing when it's not indicated, please call me on it, because I don't want to do it. I don't want to model this for you, and vice versa. So we call each other. And, depending on what you're saying, it's hard to change our speech pattern. You can try to replace it with something else, like please, or just eliminate it.
Well, and I love how you brought your kids in to help you find your awareness on it and engaging them in that process. And I was thinking, as you were saying that, your mind goes, And I was thinking about how often I say it just in the grocery store or at Walmart or wherever you're going. But you come around a corner, right? And someone's there. And so you either stop and let them go or whatever. But how many times do you say, oh, I'm sorry? And I wonder if that's an indication. The next time you go just to the grocery store or go shopping or whatever, count how many times you naturally just say, oh, I'm sorry, because someone was looking at something or you were trying to reach for something or whatever. And I hear it all the time too, don't you?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And tying back to perfect also. See how often you hear perfect pepper your speech and other people's speech. I really, really strive to replace perfect as well and try to eliminate it from my vocabulary because verbiage is important and it sets up unrealistic expectations, or with too many I'm sorry's, just putting you on the down step for no reason.
Yeah. Wow, you've really brought something to my mind that hasn't really been there before. Now I've got something new to think about and see how I can improve my life. And again, not expecting perfection, right? But that's I think when we talk about imperfect heroes, the hero part of it is constantly understanding that perfection is out of reach, but improvement is not.
Absolutely.
And that's what makes you the hero part, is looking for ways to improve and just to be happier. I did a podcast a while ago about he wrote the book, I Can Appreciate That. And it was his journey from being a very negative, glass half empty kind of guy to becoming a more positive person. And, that is an interesting struggle, I think, for all of us. And I love the way that you've presented it as well. That's just awesome. I love the idea of your book and what's going on there. And so how would they get that book?
Absolutely. Thank you. You can find it on First Eat Your Frog on Amazon.com and also on bookshop.org. Still order online, but support your local booksellers.
I love it. And I love, too, supporting your local book shops. I love going to a bookshop. And so is there any other way that you would encourage people to find you? Socials, any of that stuff?
Yep, you can find me on social media, on LinkedIn, on Twitter, and on Instagram, Dr. Arleo, or at Dr. Arleo. Arleo.
Love it. Arleo. Now, I know everyone's in a panic because they want all this information and they don't have a pen in their hand or a paper. So guess what? It's just down in the show notes. And there's a picture of the book. You can see it if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble. You can see the picture of it. And we're going to make sure that you have all that information so you can just click on it if you scroll down. And if you're scrolling down and looking at things, why don't you hit a like and a follow and tell a friend about it. Leave a comment. We'd love to hear what you think about today's topic. And so, Dr. Arleo, though, I always end with the same questions, and my listeners know. But I'd love to hear how you would describe a successful parent.
A successful parent involves a child, and I think any relationship is going to be a two-way street. So it's got to be successful for both the parent and the child to be a success.
I love that.
And it's bi-directional. It involves loving and being loved. And that may be in different ways for different parents and for different children. And if it's happy in that way between the two and satisfying, then that's a successful parent, loving and being loved.
Yes, I agree with you so much. And there's nothing like that feeling of being loved, especially when our kids and maybe they've messed up, maybe they've done something wrong, and they feel unlovable. And it happens to every kid. It's just part of life. But this is how you secure them, is when you least feel like hugging them, right, is when they need to know they're loved. I love your reminder. Thank you so much. And so, Dr. Arleo, I want to encourage everyone to check out your book. It's amazing. First Eat Your Frog. And we'll talk to you again sometime. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you today.
And if you want to learn more about Dr. Arleo and her book, just click on the link where? In the show notes. And while you're there, hit the follow button and make sure you're getting in on the amazing episodes that we have each week. And if you like what you heard in today's podcast, be sure to rate and review, and then please tell a friend. You can do this whether you listen on Apple, Spotify, or some other platform, or if you listen from the Imperfect Heroes podcast website. So on that website, you just click on the top where it says reviews and then leave a review, and it's that easy. And if you're watching on YouTube or Rumble, be sure to follow. We love to spread the word. We've all heard that kids don't come with a manual, but a book came out on August 1st called The Parenting Owner's Manual, and it's a compilation of 33 family experts from around the world, and yours truly is chapter 3. So order your copy today on Amazon, and guess what? The link is in the show notes. You can also find the link on my website, which is www.littleheartsacademyusa.com. And you are going to be so surprised to hear that the link is also in the show notes. And next week, my guest is Terry Sizemore, who just happens to be the publisher of my own upcoming children's book, Roman is Bigger. And we are talking about faith and children's literature. So check it out and see. And until next time, let's find joy in parenting.